There's a set of associations that come to mind when you think of a big budget blockbuster movie. Mainstream movies like this are often perceived to put audience enjoyment above all, and can sometimes be afraid to be slower paced and trade interesting scenes laden with subtext for explosions and over-the-top action. And I feel like this sentiment, or at least some version of it, has been in the film zeitgeist for a while. This discussion about what makes a movie worthy of being good is particularly discussed nowadays with the Marvel franchise. So today I want to talk about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy from 2011. The film industry has changed a lot since then, but this is an example of a bigger budget spy movie that is very different to other movies of the same genre. The first thing I'll say is that this is a slow movie. Not slow in the sense that it's really boring, but you just really have to focus. The drama in the film doesn't jump out to the audience, it requires active thought on the part of the viewer. So naturally, it's not for everyone. But if you're willing to meet the movie at its level, you're likely to have a decent time. This is what makes Tinker Tailor interesting. Its plot and characters are just so unlike what you'd find in many other spy movies. It's an absolute spiderweb of a story, so I won't give a plot summary. You have to interpret what you're seeing while watching the movie, but it does reward you for paying attention. And this is the main reason why I wanted to make this video, because of the way that this uses visuals. Film is a visual medium, and telling the story visually is obviously a core mechanic of the movies. But it's rare to get a movie like this that utilises subtext and clever visual storytelling almost entirely at the expense of the popcorn spectacle we've become used to in spy fiction. Other spy fiction movies have all the usual tropes: car chases, guns, and generally a well-muscled character that fights their way to defeating the bad guys. But Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy doesn't really have this. Instead of a muscly James Bond fighting off hordes of masked henchmen, we have George Smiley, a middle-aged spy who doesn't drive fast cars or wield machine guns, but instead goes around and steadily decodes the mystery. As opposed to defeating the bad guys through physical means, we get lots of cerebral close-ups of Smiley looking at things. It isn't entirely absent of spectacle, it just takes a different form. A simple close-up of an open window, or a chess piece, or a pile of documents is just as explosive and has just as much impact as a bomb going off. All the cool moments in this movie come from deciphering all the subtext behind a single frame and placing it in the context of the rest of the story. There's a deleted scene that just really is a microcosm of the approach this movie takes. We get over a minute of George Smiley, played by Gary Oldman, cooking an egg in his kitchen. And that's it. There's no witty one-liners or anything else that begs for the audience's attention. Like the rest of the movie, the interest in this scene comes from wondering what he's thinking. What does he know? What doesn't he? Some people will find this boring, and to some extent I can see where they're coming from, but the feeling of boredom comes less from a legitimate lack of things happening in the movie, but just instead that it can be hard to interpret at times. As the movie really starts to ramp up, we get scene after scene adding new information to what we already know. And because the movie really doesn't hold your hand, you're left on your own to make sense of it all. At a certain point, you acknowledge that you don't understand the story inside out and just try to understand what you can. But by the end of the movie, you'll likely understand enough of it for the end to be satisfying, but there's still a frustration that you just don't fully get it. This is something that's easy to get annoyed about because audiences kind of expect that they will have their head around the story by the end of the movie. But instead of being a failure on the part of the film, I think it's another example of how it wants to depict the world of spies and sabotage. It is complicated. It is mundane. Characters are presented with this massively tangled web, and the movie doesn't dumb it down at all for the viewer. And while the story does reach a conclusion, it doesn't fall neatly into your lap in a nice tidy box. It's a complicated labyrinth of a story, and the movie makes no real attempt to present it in an easily digestible form. It's pretty much absent of the type of violence that we've come to expect from the James Bond style of spy movie. There's no stylistic flair to accompany images of dead bodies or of people being shot. The movie doesn't try to justify it in any way, instead pushing the audience to ask why all this is even necessary in the first place. Overall though, this is a refreshingly different approach to a spy movie that we're not normally used to. Watch it and let me know what you think in the comments below.